there are some things that CarousHELL does really right, and there are some things where it really lets itself down. It is very much a film of two halves for me. This was released in 2016, directed by Steve Rudzinski and written by Rudzinski and Aleen Isley. And the reason I watched this is because I'm obsessed with horrors and thrillers set in fairgrounds and theme parks. And complete credit where credit is due, when the film is set in the fairground, I enjoyed it. It's not a scary film, but it's cheesy. There's some really cheesy CGI, particularly with this fairground unicorn that comes to life. But it's not trying to be amazing. It does look a bit gimmicky, but it works because it's a really cheesy, corny horror, and I like that. So this unicorn on the carousel is our narrator. I have to say I've never watched a film that's narrated by a carousel unicorn before. And he's fed up with his life and just spinning round and round, so he gets off of the carousel and attacks people with his horn to begin with, and then he gets a bit more inventive with the way in which he maims and harms and kills people. I have to say, some of the makeup is pretty great. I don't want to spoil anything, but there's a particular scene, I think it's his first kill actually, where it was really difficult to see how they did it because it looked like the horn was gouging somebody's flesh, and just looking at it, it looked realistic. A bit odd, but very realistic, and I really liked that. I was quite impressed with that. And while the CGI of the carousel unicorn is really dodgy and really corny, it's fun, and that made it fun and entertaining. And I thought it was really cheesy but good, and I like cheesy horror, I really do. Where it let itself down is when the unicorn left the fairground. Once we go away from the fairground setting, it becomes really dull. We have a lot of time when there are no killings, a lot of time when the unicorn's not there, and we just have these very stereotypical, boring, underdeveloped, college-age students, young adults, who we know are going to be the unicorn's target, but they're very boring and cliche, and they have nothing going for them, and I don't care about them, and I kind of want the unicorn to get them because they're very cliche and bring nothing to the table. And that's where the film lets itself down. Once it leaves behind the fairground environment and we no longer have that kind of innocent fun contrast with the bloody murderous unicorn, it just loses its spark and just becomes like pretty much every other film like this. Granted, I haven't seen any film like this one before, but there are many films where it's just young adults and a murderer, and most of the time we're just listening to the young adults talk absolute rubbish, and then a couple of them get killed. It's very predictable. So the start of the film was very good. Once it left the fairground, I kind of lost interest. I still liked it when we saw the unicorn. I don't like the fact that he was given a voice, even though he narrates it. I think it would have been more sinister if he was silent. But I realised we had to realise why he left in the first place, and that's told through his narration. So this is definitely not the worst film I've ever seen. The bits I enjoyed, I did really enjoy, and I think if the entire film had been like that, it would have been pretty great. Honestly, it let itself down after that, but I'm so glad that I watched I'm glad I watched all of it, but I'm really glad that I got to see the fairground bits because it was pretty interesting.